right. We are back on the death lineup here after the Warriors lose to the Phoenix Suns 108-104 in a game that was very reminiscent of a first game of the NBA season. Lots of turnovers, lots of fouls, lots of bricks by KD and Clay, Wiggs, guys who can make some shots, did not have them falling. And it became the Booker against Steph and maybe a little bit of CP3 show. But ultimately, the Warriors did not have enough against Phoenix. And I was kind of disappointed because they were at home. I thought maybe they could edge this one out, but they didn't. And ultimately, to me, I don't know what you thought. Like, if you could put one thing on the game, it was just that Devin Booker was clearly the best player on the court, and they could not overcome that.
Yeah, he definitely looks like an MVP, potential MVP candidate this year. And I think he completely showed. Like, he just looked, it was effortless out there, man. And especially in that like when he opened up, what do you have? Probably like almost 25 at the half.
Yeah, 15 in the first.
Yeah, and it's just you throw that cruddy lineup out there and you hope for the best. But yeah, no, I think that my takeaway would be that. My takeaway would be like, I think we all agreed, but the Steph, Clay, and CP lineup, like, it's just tough to watch defensively, and especially when things aren't clicking offensively, like, it just kind of looks bad out there. And if you read off the field goal percentages from the starting lineup besides Loon, I don't know what Loon's was, but everyone shot like 40% or under. Like, Steph was 8 for 20. I think Clay was like, what was it, like something for like 18. CP was like 4 for 15. Like, it was just it's not even like they were taking like these super tough shots, in my opinion.
They were just off.
They were just off. And that's reassuring a little bit, that it's just like they're just missing. But at some point, it's like you thought it was going to click, and it was the subs, it was the bench unit that was like kind of bringing us back to life in both of those times we went down big. And yeah, I feel like very uncharacteristic Warrior loss in terms of like they really never got it going.
Some of this stuff is new guys trying to fit in, right? I think we watched Saric, or as Ian Eagle called him, Sharich. Maybe that's
how you pronounce it. No, yeah, it is. It is.
That's a little harder than that.
You like pronounce it SH.
Yeah,
kind of like Şengün.
I feel like for Fitz and Kalena, that's the Wembanyama of Saric. But he was hitting from deep in the preseason, and they're not really guarding him that much. But then it's a real game. He didn't really have that shot, so he puts the ball on the floor and he tries to go inside. And then you look and see what happens. And you go, oh, that's why he was available for for whatever the small amount of money. And this is not to say that he's not going to help, because I think he's going to help. But you could immediately see his deficiency as an NBA basketball player when they took away the outside shot. We love GP. Gosh, love that guy so much. Can't go 0 for 5 shooting, dude. You just can't. And so that makes it interesting, because Steph is 8 for 20. He struggled from deep, 4 of 14. Clay was 3 of 11 from deep. Chris Paul 0 for 6.
Andrew Wiggins didn't make his first shot until the third quarter, right?
Andrew Wiggins 0 for 3. Gary Payton 0 for 2. So he's struggling from deep. But you know who didn't struggle? There's a guy by the name of Moses Moody. He only played 18 minutes. And I was like, okay, I get it. You want, you're going to go with the guys you trust, which is Wiggs, Clay, Steph, CP. But like you said, when you play those guys together, you're so small. Looney only ended up with 11 rebounds. I feel like Nurkic beat him to like 11 rebounds. Nurkic ended up with 14. But it just shows you that how important Draymond is. Like, Draymond, I'm sure some of the rebounds that Looney gets, Draymond's probably got a body on somebody to help free him up. And they didn't have anybody to do that. And so Looney's like basically jump balling some of these rebounds and not being able to get them. So lots of things, that you can sort of learn from how the team played and some of the stuff that Steve did. But I want to go back to Moody for a second here because we were kind of talking. Is this the year? We said the same thing about Kuminga. I thought Kuminga played pretty well. He was actually one of the few guys who was a plus in the plus minus. CP, Clay, interestingly, and Kuminga were all pluses in the plus minus. Peyton was a plus 15, so maybe my 0 for 5 comment probably maybe a little harsh, but Moody came in. He had energy. He hit a couple threes. He got a steal. He was going to the hole.
Didn't he get a block?
I think he may have had 2 blocks. Let me see what he got counted. He got 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and 1 block. Then he did the one thing that I think probably irritates Kerr a little bit to quick trigger him, which is the ball swung to him and he held it and he didn't know exactly what to do. And somebody swiped it and they went the other way. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You're going to get taken out of the game. But Moody and Kuminga, I thought, did what they needed to do. This was really on the starters and this lineup.
It was.
Kerr was really, really stubborn with until the end. I don't know if you saw that. Wiggins was not in there at the end.
That should be I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as benching someone is, but he got benched for JK to end the game.
Yeah. A little sleepy, I thought. I thought Wiggins was a little sleepy today.
Very careless, very sleepy. So many of those. Did you see how those layups that he was missing? It just kind of felt like he was just kind of like slowly. I don't know. There was no urgency. There was really nothing from it. It was very weird to see from him because the story behind him is that he can just go missing for a couple months. But I've never seen. He didn't go missing. He was there. He was just awful.
When you have Eric Gordon in the post and you have the clear advantage in every physical and athletic attribute,
and you get stripped.
Eric Gordon makes you go away from the move that you wanted, and then you do a lazy fadeaway that he strips. That is on you. There's no way that Eric Gordon should ever win that matchup the way that he did.
And then Eric Gordon creates a fast break, kicks it to KD on the right side. Wiggins is running back. He turns around slowly. D-Book gets around him and he doesn't see it, and it's just an easy layup. So not only was the steal his fault, the bucket on the other end was his fault. And it's not. I feel like we're not used to Wiggins sleeping defensively like that. That's usually what we can at least rely on him on. Is he's just going to be alert, active the whole time.
Yeah, and this is overreaction Tuesday night. This is just one game, but you're just sort of seeing some of the things because Phoenix is going to be a good team. They're going to be there. They have 2 excellent players, and this was KD on a sleepy.
This is probably the worst I've ever seen.
He was. I don't know that he is somebody who kind of gets overwhelmed in the moment. But this was a homecoming game for him for his Warriors season, right? For his Warriors career. And so those guys like him, especially Steph and Draymond and Clay. And so, there's a little bit of that in there. And he seemed
you don't want to say that he's regressing. You just don't want to overreact like that.
I was wondering about this.
I think his postseason stats in the last 2 postseasons where they got swept by Boston and then lost to Denver in 6. I believe he hasn't been that great. It's been lower, cruddier postseason runs for him statistically.
I mean, obviously, the injuries are catching up to him for sure. But if we look at last year versus the previous years, he's the same guy.
Regular season,
yeah. His scoring was down a tick. His 3-point shooting was amazing, but it's because he only had 8 games in Phoenix. But yeah, his scoring in Phoenix was down a tick, but ultimately his regular season stuff was just as good as it's ever been.
Yeah.
So you can look at the postseason stuff, which is we don't really have time to look at that. But I don't know if he's a step slower. He looks the same to me.
He does look. It just feels like he's missing
shots, and I think
I
You
feel like
know,
it's weird to see the physicality kind of overwhelm him. I don't know if it was totally overwhelming him, but that stuff, he's usually just able to work around. He's like, oh, my wingspan is 7 inches taller than yours, so I'll just be able to shoot over you. But like JK, it felt like when JK was going like vertically straight up, it was bothering him.
I was gonna say I thought Clay played him good because Clay can't really jump. And so Clay was just staying down, and Clay probably knows him, fairly well, and he wasn't falling for any stuff. He just had hand in, face guarding and hand up there. So I thought Clay actually did a pretty decent job on him. But I you're Katie's gonna score 25 or more points a game this season, and that's on the low end. So I'm not really worried. I wouldn't be worried about him
Yeah, no.
necessarily. But this is what it and so ultimately my first point that I was talking about, how to the one thing about this game is Booker is so good that he can overcome a bad KD game. And the problem with the Warriors is Steph has to be great to overcome Clay and Wiggins and CP not being able to make buckets. I mean, you look at this box score, and the second highest scorer, if you were to guess, who's the second highest scorer tonight for the Warriors?
Chris Paul. Was it
Chris
Chris?
Paul was third, but he's third, and Klay Thompson is second.
Ugh.
But they both have 15 and 14 points. So Steph has 27 on an off game for him. He got to the free throw line there a little bit later, but when if Clay's not a 22, then where does that slack pick up? Well, it wasn't from Wiggins, it wasn't from CP. Kuminga and Moody, did their job. Saric only had 7. So it's just like, Steph has got to be incredible in games like this. And he was average. Average for Steph, I would say. So, but Booker is in his prime, and he's like, okay, KD's not playing well. You know who was awesome was your favorite, Okogie. He was
I
awesome.
know.
Oh my
He was
gosh.
I feel like he just took advantage of the aspect of like, okay, we have this Steph CP Clay lineup. One of them's got to guard me, and I just feel like he was just jumping over all of them.
You also
It's
know
not like
who you want to know who was the highest plus minus for Phoenix?
Eubanks.
It was Yuta Watanabe.
Well, of course.
Yuta Watanabe and Jordan Goodwin plus
Did you hear Eagle say Swatanabe?
7. I didn't hear that, but
Oh man,
every time he got to say his name, he said his full name, his full government name.
because he's the Brooklyn Nets announcer, right?
Yeah. He gave his full government name, and he said it so enthusiastically. It wasn't like, Yuta Watanabe on the rebound. It was Yuta Watanabe every single time. I loved it. I love just hearing that name, Yuta Watanabe. Yeah. So, if Booker's going to be that good, the Warriors need someone on the other end to match that. And Steph didn't have a great Steph game. And the other thing about this, and I want to get your thoughts on this. When they play that small lineup and CP and Steph play together, Steph is guarding guys who maybe he would have had to guard in the past, and that's going to change a little bit when Draymond is there, obviously. But he had some really dumb fouls, and that they had to pull him. He did have only 30 minutes of court time. Here are the leaders in minutes: Clay 36, CP at 34.
It's not supposed to even be that high. That's the
And
point.
I know, and Steph at 30, and then it was Wiggins and Looney had 27, and then GP had 21. So GP's at 21 minutes and no points. They're just sagging off of him.
I felt like Moody should have taken some. I thought GP was good, but I felt like Moody maybe should have taken some of those from him.
And he might, that their minutes.
That's the 9 and 10 guys.
GP had 22, Moody had 18. Maybe that could change, right? Maybe you switch and Moody's got 20 and GP's got 17, 18, and that could be something. I also thought that in some of these matchups. I don't know. Do you think Saric is a better defender, or do you think Looney is a better defender? We haven't seen a ton of Saric, but Saric just seems way longer than Looney. Like he could actually get out to shots that Looney is kind of struggling to recognize. That might be a small
Yeah, but
thing,
he's
and
slow-footed.
I mean they both are, right? They both are. And that's a small thing because neither guy is probably going to be in that position when Draymond comes back. But just something that I was kind of keeping an eye on.
I feel like Looney, this is kind of unrelated, but that last play where it was GP on Book and then high screen, and Looney felt the need to jump out with both hands high, but GP was able to recover, and then Book does the jump pass to Nurk.
He's not
I
going to be
kind of
able to
felt
do
like
that pass a lot, though. That's a risky thing for him to be up in the air like that.
I also
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, one, should Looney have jumped two out there? I mean, not two, but should he have jumped out there to contest it, or should he have stayed home? Or even when they took Steph out there because they took Steph out because they didn't want him to get his sixth foul. At that point, I mean, just take Clay and CP out too, and just throw in Kuminga and Moody, or Kuminga was already in. Throw in Wiggins and Moody, and just go all defense. Clay, I felt like Clay didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but I feel like Moody would have probably at least tried to do something there because it was Clay versus Nurk at the rim.
Yeah, totally. What did you think of the CP experience? It was kind of fun to be on the other side of those flops that get the foul calls. I like that. I like being on the other side of that. But you remember, and I was being a little over the top with my commentary when I was saying how I wonder if defenses are just going to sag because he doesn't seem like he is confident in that shot. And he wasn't at all. I think he's going to hit more of those than not, but the three-pointer wasn't there. He was almost reluctant to pull the trigger on the two-pointer, and he ended up with the ball. He's got the ball a lot. Even with Steph on the court, CP has the ball so much that he's going to end up taking a lot of these shots, if they can't make something work offensively. And I thought he just had the ball at the end of the shot clock a little bit too much. The other thing is, the way that the Warriors play, they watch a lot, right? Because they're expecting Steph or Clay to kind of save the possession. And CP is like trying to make something happen. And you're just like looking at the guys are just like, oh, I'm supposed to catch that pass. You're supposed to shoot this ball. Like Looney got caught once. And I think there was a JK one where he wasn't ready, but that's just going to be an adjustment for when they, as they play together more, that they're going to get better at that. But I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned in our last pod, I was like, well, how many times did CP shoot it in the preseason? What wasn't it, like 5 times? Like he barely shot,
and
the
they
ball
were like
at
the
all.
sideline fadeaway ones
Yeah,
that he likes to shoot.
And it's like when you're literally out here to replace Jordan Poole, who scored 21 points per game for us last season.
Yeah.
Like, you need to shoot the ball. You don't need to give us 21, but you need to shoot the ball. The very first possession, he shoots his patented mid-range. He misses it.
Yeah.
He doesn't make anything until the third quarter, but it's kind of like, hey, you should have shot the damn ball more in the preseason because we needed you to shoot those mid-ranges. Some of those should have fell tonight because a lot of them were wide open. But yeah, from the 3-point line, I don't think he's a slouch from 3, but he's definitely I didn't want to see him shooting at the ones maybe that he was shooting, especially at the end of the shot clock. Shaq mentioned something at the TNT podium, which was something like, he's like, and I kind of disagree with this, but I see what he's saying, and I do agree with a little bit of it being that he was like, when I'm used to seeing the Warriors rebound, boom, 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 down the court. Sometimes with CP, he was like,
slowing it down.
Dribble,
Yeah.
slowed it down.
I saw the same thing, but
I thought that there were good stretches of them going fast, but it was honestly kind of sloppy, where I almost wasn't too opposed to CP slowing it down.
And that's what I thought too. I was like, okay, he's in his head, he is hearing, you are here because we turn the ball over too much and you're a point guard. And he did pass the ball very well. I think he led both teams in assists. He had 9, and Booker had 8. So he was finding guys. He did rebound well. He had 6 rebounds. tied for third on the team with JK. Actually, Sarch and Clay both had 7. So um, it was Looney and then Clay, Sarich, and CP and Kaminga, and then Steph. So there are pieces, and it's like, when you look at how the team fits together on paper, the one missing thing is an athletic big, and an athletic big who can actually be a game changer at the rim, right? Because there's a lot, when Nurkic is just diving at the rim, he's just like, oh my gosh,
Did you
I
think
get to
that they maybe
finish
should
this
have
thing.
Did you think that they maybe should have tried Trace Jackson Davis next to Saric to provide a little more size in spurts, or do you think you just would have gotten like completely killed in like the heat of the moment?
Well, it would have been interesting. I'm sure he would have gotten the butt cheeks. He would have been really nervous, but it's not like they were big, right? They had the one guy who I kind of made fun of him, Eubanks, because I said, Drew Eubanks looks like when you try your 2K face scan and it gets kind of screwed up. Like that's what he looks like. And he's just like, he's a little bit of a stiff, but he kind of was just out there being tall and creating fouls and you know illegal screens and just doing dirty stuff that they just needed a few minutes of that. I don't think Drew Eubanks himself was a very good player, but he was just tall, and the Warriors don't have one of those guys who can be tall and who can run the floor a little bit and who can just put their hands up. Their centers were Looney and Saric. Neither of those guys are athletic. They have good size. Looney's 6'9", Saric is probably a little bit taller than that. But yeah, there's who would you want? Who do you think could stop someone coming down the lane and hammering one down? Maybe Kuminga could probably stand there, but other than him, nobody really.
Yeah. I
You know,
just think I just think that with not only does it feel like we're not that big, but when you lose someone in the front court, it just feels like it exposes way more of how maybe not deep we are in that category. Whereas if you lose, CP or Clay, God forbid, of course, but it feels like we have the guys to kind of step up and take the minutes there. But here it kind of felt like maybe Rudy Gay would have played tonight, like just another guy who was bigger out there that could have played alongside Saric or Loon and for a spurt there.
And Draymond's going to fix some of this. He's definitely going to fix it. You know what I was thinking? As CP was, kind of holding the ball a little bit, in my mind, Draymond is stomping his foot and slapping his hands together, saying, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." And CP's kind of holding it back and that's going to be a relationship on the court that is going to be something that I'm watching for, because
I
they just
genuinely don't
play
know
differently.
what does Draymond do in some of those, like when CP's just bringing it up. So like, what is
Does he
his
just go to the
is just
corner?
off ball screen and
Yeah, I don't know.
just dart to the hoop? I guess. Yeah, it's gonna be. I almost feel like him and CP shouldn't see the court together unless Draymond's the center.
Mm-hmm.
So then, yeah, that would make sense to me.
I mean, that might be the starting lineup, right? Maybe it's Looney who gets
Mm-mm.
moved out.
Uh-uh.
It might be, because
I
do
don't
you
think
do
so.
you want the 2 non-shooters, or do you want the guys who can possibly, make shots to start the game?
Well, I just think I don't think we're changing the starting lineup from the best net rating top 5 net rating starting lineup last season. I think CP is going to come off the bench.
His brother played 34 minutes tonight.
That's too many. That was too many. Ugh, man.
This is why he plays too much, right? Is because you rely on him more than you think that you're going to rely on him. And Steph is so willing to just let these guys bring the ball up, and he's like, I'll figure out a way to get it. I'm going to run around. There were some possessions where I was like, let's go sit in the corner, CP. I want to see what Steph's going to do here, and
Yeah.
that's another thing they're going to have to figure out. But ultimately, I will say I was happy with the CP minutes. It was just a lot. It was a lot of ball handling. It was way more minutes than I thought he should have played necessarily. But then again, if he's hitting his shot, then you probably think differently. Then you're like, oh, maybe he should just, play. Maybe that is the right amount if he's making shots. But if he's not making shots, then you got, another non-shooter on the floor who is looking to pass and not looking to shoot. And that just kind of collapses, the defense just collapses more on Steph. So that's something to pay attention to. And like I said, this is overreaction Tuesday night. This is one game. We watched the preseason very closely. They're going to have to figure out, some things as far as offensively and defensively rotation. This is going to be one of Kerr's, I think, his most important coaching jobs, because they put this roster together so that there is not the excuse that they had last year, which is, we're trying to play these young guys. They put this roster together specifically to go, this is a veteran roster. You figure out Moody, you figure out Kuminga, and we can't really excuse we took the wild card of Jordan Poole and we brought in an adult. So there's not that excuse. Nobody can blame Jordan Poole for this game, because we would have if he was on there instead of CP. He would have been the guy we would have been like, man, and then he takes this bad shot and then he doesn't get back on defense. He wasn't there to screw this one up. So I think this is going to be Kerr's one of his toughest and most important coaching jobs for his career so far.
Yeah. Well, show why you're supposed to be like a unanimous top 3 coach, man. We'll see. Yeah, it is overreaction Tuesday at the end of the day, but man, I can't believe Kerr tried to play Corey Joseph with like Steph and Clay.
I told you, and we talked about this, Corey Joseph versus B-Pods.
B-Pods would have made something happen.
He would have made something happen. He would probably made some turnovers too. He would have lost somebody on a defensive rotation. The Corey Joseph body on the court, he's the smallest guy. He's the slowest guy. He runs to a spot, he passes, and that's really all he does. So unless there is some dynamic athleticism that I just haven't seen from him yet, if there's a shot making ability that he has that I haven't seen yet, he's going to need to show that, because when I watched him on the court and I thought, this feels like preseason, like he's just running to spots and he's not doing anything that the other team is reacting to. So that, there's no gravity to a Corey Joseph. So I was kind of surprised. And it just kind of makes you wonder, what is his role on a team like this? Because they already have the adult in CP. Do you need another guy who is just not going to turn the ball over? Or do you need somebody who's actually going to get a bucket? And it doesn't look like Corey Joseph's going to get a bucket.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like, okay, you have Steph who, how many games did he play last year? Like 50 something, and then you have CP who is older. You just might want some insurance at that position. But then again, yeah, he's not really like he doesn't really do like what I've noticed because he was on the Pistons and I'd watch some Pistons games. It kind of felt like he was just the grenade guy who, he would
what he feels like.
Yeah, he would get everything, like he'd set everything up, and it was like he didn't really provide anything on that end. But then he'd just be like the grenade guy when the shot clock's at like 2 seconds. Give it to Corey, and he might do something. And he just hucks the shot up, because as you've seen him, he's not really like capable of like crossing someone up, or the quickness isn't going to get him by someone. It's just, I'm shooting a prayer. So yeah, we'll see with him. But man, did we go? What did Slater tweet out? We go on the road for like 7 of the next 8 games.
Yeah, they have I guess Sack on Friday, and Sack's gonna be really interested in winning this ball game. Yeah, they're gonna be fired up to light that beam. So that's gonna be a tough game. And then I think is it Houston on Sunday?
I have the schedule. So then it's Sacramento on Friday, Houston on Sunday, back to back already. So then it's Houston on Sunday, New Orleans on Monday. Then we get Sacramento again at home. And then we go out to OKC, then we start an East Coast trip after OKC. You go to OKC, then you go to Cleveland, Detroit. Oh, then you go back to Denver. Man, this is a weird schedule for them.
Yeah. I wonder why they did it that way. But I also heard that they close on the road, so they must have a bunch of games in the middle at home.
They must. Yeah, because then they come home for Cleveland, then double Minnesota at home, double OKC at home,
I
Houston.
hate it when they do that. It's not
Yeah.
fun.
And none of these are easy. Like even Houston, I know we kind of think of usually as like the one where we could just like, okay, we're gonna kill him. But no, they added Van Vliet, they added Dylan Brooks, they added even Jock Landale, just like guys to because they don't have their draft pick this season. So they said, oh well, we can't tank again because we're not gonna keep it. It's top 4 protected. And so they actually went out and spent some money in the offseason to hopefully like, maybe get close to the play-in. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't say like they're like a walk in the park anymore as we used to think.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what did you think about Phoenix's depth? Because I think that's the thing that's going to be the biggest problem for them all season long. Now, they didn't have Bradley Beal. You have Bradley Beal, you have Booker, you have KD. There's those three guys. You can always have one of those guys on the court during every rotation. But they played Grayson Allen, who may have been the worst player for both teams.
Which is interesting because I think he's actually like supposed to be like their solid depth pickup.
I don't know about that one. I heard some stuff in Milwaukee about how he just was not good at all for
I
them.
mean, he's just an energy guy, right? Like he's not really the most talented player. He just kind of flies around everywhere,
Yeah,
and I
I
felt
mean,
like it wasn't.
he's like, steps underneath feet and
Yeah,
stops, and so people run over him and stuff like that. Eric Gordon did not play well, though he did hit the
he
biggest shot of the game, I thought.
he did. Yeah, yeah.
And then, like I said, face scan Drew Eubanks didn't do much. Watanabe, he hit the open shot. That's kind of what he's there for. He got some loose ball rebounds as well. And Goodwin, I don't even know if I ever seen Goodwin play. Where's Goodwin
I don't
from?
know where he's. Yeah, good point. I don't know.
By the way, Corey Joseph in his 3 minutes and 42 seconds -12. So they must have went on a run with him on the court.
Jesus.
This is
Yeah, I
and
wonder.
this is not the Corey Joseph hater podcast. I'm just kind of interested to see what he excels at that they like about him because
Yeah,
I didn't see anything in the preseason.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder who Phoenix's starting five is once Beal's back. Does Grayson move to the bench? Does Okogie move to the bench? Do they both
You
move to the
gotta
bench for
keep
Eric Gordon?
Okogie in there, man. That guy makes stuff happen.
Yeah, I think they will because they are really lacking defensive. Because Grayson Allen's supposed to be a solid defender. You bring back Beal, who's the minus defender, and then you take out Grayson. Like, yeah, you probably got to keep Okogie. But no, their depth, like, I mean, I think Eric Gordon did have just like an off night and then finally hit the best shot. But I think he is a solid pickup. I mean, it's reported that the Warriors almost got him. Um, and we like Watanabe, and
Mm-hmm.
I like Nazir Little, but what was interesting is that I think Nazir came in at some point in the third quarter and he had not played yet. So Vogel was clearly like, all right, I'm making like this in-game adjustment that like, you look on the other side with Kerr. Kerr would never do something. He would never nix his rotation just to be like, let me try Trace Jackson Davis with this 30-second spurt right here. And Vogel did it with Nazir. And I think Nazir did one good thing, but I think he fouled Kuminga right away, went to the line. But he's someone
He
who I
made it
like.
three. I think he made it 3.
He made a 3. Okay, he's someone who I do like, but he hasn't really like proven anything. He was a guy who Zion's draft class. He was actually the number one, not number one high school player because obviously that was Zion, but that McDonald's high school All American game that at the end of the high school season before they all go to college, they all just
Mm-hmm.
play this like all star high school game. Nazir Little got the MVP in that year because I remember following it and I was a big Nazir fan, but he's kind of one of those guys who fell down like Michael Porter Jr. that year. But Michael Porter Jr. was the year before, but yeah, Nazir Little is just maybe he does something on that squad too. But I fear for them like I don't love the depth. I think it's like okay, but I think the continuity is a big deal. This is a fully rehauled roster where the only guys that you're retaining and someone we didn't even talk about who would have been great tonight, I bet, Damian Lee. So Devin Booker, Damian Lee, and there's one more, and I'm forgetting it. Okogie are the only guys from last year's team. I guess KD, but he only was there played maybe 15 games in a Suns roster.
8. He played 8 games
Eight
before the
games
playoffs.
8 games. So I don't even count KD in this scenario, but you have 3 essentially returners and you have all these new guys. So I feel like that does mean something, at least in the current moment. Like if they don't have it figured out by the playoffs, of course not, but it's not going to work out. But I feel like the continuity is something that is worth for sure noting because I feel like what the Warriors have, just kind of everyone knowing what everyone's doing, and then the new guys come in and adjust. Whereas in the Phoenix team, it's like, well, we're all new, so how are we going to figure this out? And I feel like it's kind of just like, okay, KD, Book, and Beal cook, and the rest of you guys figure it out, which is kind of uninspiring basketball. But I feel like there are some role players who are just really good at Yuta being one of them, just being like, okay, I'll just sit here and play my role to a T and hit open threes. But yeah, that was my critique on them, was just lack of depth, lack of continuity, and then defense. And again, I feel like the Warriors beat themselves offensively tonight.
Well, the game on Friday, this is going to be the one where the Kings and the fans circle this one. This is going to be the 8th game of the playoff series for them, I feel. But the one thing, I would imagine the Kings are going to win this game just because of the fact that it's at home. But at the same time, defensively, the Kings can be so bad that it kind of fixes a lot of the Warriors' problems just because of how poor they are defensively. So that is going to be something that I think, to where I'm not completely giving this one. I'm not completely going into this game with the mentality of, okay, I kind of expect the Kings to win. I do think the Warriors have a pretty decent chance at winning this game because of that, though. As you know, as we saw, when the Kings go on a run, they go on a run, and that building goes nuts. And then Corey Joseph might have to be the adult and pull the ball out and get a stop or two. But so that's going to be a great game. Second game of the season. You go into Sacramento, and such a fun team and a fun series last year. I'm assuming that's an ESPN game. Is that what it is?
Did I close the tab? I think I kept it open. TNT. No, ESPN.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, ESPN game on a Friday night. But yeah, it's a great one. So it's another great challenge for the Warriors with this early in the season. The Kings are mostly bringing back the same team,
basically.
So they're going to be ready to go. One other thing I wanted to mention before we get out of here, which is I promised my all Warriors update here. I didn't quite finish it because I'm still looking through Basketball Reference. I went down a rabbit hole, and I was texting your grandfather about, how come I never hear about this guy, like Phil Smith from the late 70s, early 80s Warriors. He's like averaging like 18 points a game. And there's another guy who I said, how come this guy just retired at the age of 31? Like, he was actually in his prime, and then he just stopped playing. So I was trying to get some context on some of these guys. But I have a list that I need to pare down. So I will read this list here, and it'll be interesting of how many people you've never heard of on this list. All right, so I split them up into. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to read what I wrote, because then I have some other tabs open with some players. So obviously, Steph, Clay, Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Baron Davis, Latrell Sprewell, Jeff Mullins, Jason Richardson, Guy Rogers, Sleepy Floyd, Phil Smith, Monte Ellis, Sharunas Marshallonis, Steven Jackson, Rick Barry, KD, Draymond, Andre, Tom Masheri, Chris Mullen, Anton Jameson, Purvis Short, David Lee, Nate Thurmond, Robert Parrish, Andres Biedrins, Andrew Bogut, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, Larry Smith, Mr. Mean, and I think those are the
Livingston?
folks. No S. Dot. He didn't even start, which is what makes it hard to put him on an all-time Warriors team. But I have to pare all of that down to 15 guys, which kind of sounds impossible.
Oh yeah,
but
Livingston would have never made a top 15.
But I have some caveats here. Obviously, this is a San Francisco Golden State era list, so no Philadelphia Warriors. And I changed the 4 years to 3 years so that KD could be on it. I think if you don't have KD on an all-time Warriors team,
right.
It doesn't feel right. Wilt get screwed, though, because Wilt only played 2.5 years on San Francisco. And then I also wrote winning matters. If you look at Andre's stats, they're not impressive in any way as far as numbers, but his value to the team, the fact that he leaves, they go through 2 years of not making the playoffs. He comes back, they win another title, stuff like that matters. And even though they had a lot of losing seasons, now get this, from the early 1980s, actually from 1980 through the 2010s. So that's 30 years of basketball that I watched closely. 8 winning seasons. So there's a lot of losing, but those guys, there's a lot of guys who still mattered. There's a lot of for the culture players that are going to make this team because, someone like Jason Richardson, he probably makes it, but he may be like on the edge. But like Jason Richardson kind of kept Warriors fans interested in the mid 2000s when maybe you shouldn't have been interested before the We Believe team. Guys like Jay Rich, Baron Davis, obviously, guys like that are Monte. They're culture picks. They're real Warriors fans. Ride with those guys, and so there's going to be some guys like that. But yeah, so I will. I don't want to promise because this has been much longer of a project than I realized just because of the deep dive in Basketball Reference. But hopefully by early next week, I will have the list out. We'll put it in the Discord. We'll put it on Twitter. We'll put it in one of the podcast feeds where we officially go over it. But that will be it from here. Is there any last thing you wanted to mention about tonight's game?
No, I think we covered it all.
All right. Overreaction Tuesday night. Warriors lose to the Phoenix Suns 108-104. Oh, I know what I wanted to look at really quickly. I wanted to look at they don't have it, which is a bummer. I just wanted to look at the rebounding because it felt like the Warriors were out rebounded like crazy. 43-31. No. I'm sorry. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. Free throws, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds.
You can just look at the summary on the app.
60. I use my phone as my camera. 68 to 60. Is that right? That sounds like a lot of rebounds.
No, it was 60-49.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This NBA.com is not adding it up correctly.
But look, offensive rebounds was 17 Phoenix, 18 us. So we out rebounded them by 1 offensively. It felt like it. It felt like we were on the offensive glass.
Yeah. So that was the thing I think that really stood out. But the other thing, Devin Booker had 6 turnovers, so he's playing a lot of point guard. He's going to be handling the ball. The Warriors didn't turn the ball over; they only had 11, so they win that.
Well, you want to know what though? How many? Do you know how many turnovers that Phoenix had altogether?
19.
So Phoenix had 19 turnovers and the Warriors had 11, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Ready for the points off a turnover stat?
Yeah.
Warriors 11 turnovers. Phoenix points off turnovers 22. So they took advantage of all 11 essentially. The Warriors or Phoenix had what, 19 turnovers?
19.
Warriors points off turnovers 9.
Interesting.
That'll do it.
That means they're not running. That means that they're pulling.
Or they are running and they're missing layups.
Yeah. And that was Wiggs, right? Wiggs is the most athletically
you
gifted
could put together his misses.
Yeah.
Put together his misses on a low light tape. I could probably do it when the clips come out tomorrow. They're gonna just be like ugly, like uncharacteristic. Like, why does it feel like he is not trying?
Well, Saric couldn't finish at the rim. Wiggs couldn't.
We depended on him too much, though. Saric isn't supposed to be taking that many shots. It felt like we depended on him too much.
Yeah. They were taking away what the Warriors wanted him to do. And, but okay, we're done here. We'll be back next week. We'll figure out the day. Usually we like to record on Thursdays, but they may be playing on Thursday, and we'll have to change it up. But we'll figure out a schedule for the in season, and this is going to be fun. No matter what, this team is going to be really interesting. I think we did the plus minus where they're going to fit with wins and such. We both believe that they should be a pretty good team, whether that's a top 4 in the West, whether that's top 6 in the West. That will remain to be seen. But this should be a very fun season. So hopefully folks are hanging out with us, covering the Warriors. Just chime in if you are on YouTube, BSPN on YouTube. Check us out. Subscribe. If you are watching live, give us a like on the video. Have you heard about this? Well, you guys don't actually stream to YouTube, but someone said that I guess likes matter on the video. It helps in the algorithm. So if you like our video on YouTube, maybe that helps out a little bit. Also, the audio feed as well. Bay Area Sports Podcasting Network, BSPN. Follow, and we're gonna have more content in season this year for the Warriors. We already do for the Niners. We will also with Giants off-season stuff. I'm going to figure out a way to do some mini podcasts for all of that. So audio feed only, though. We'll save the YouTube for all of our live streams when Brian and I are together. Okay, that is it from here. Thank you for checking us out. For Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.